Hi, Cindy. I think we're live. Yeah.
Ah,
Well,
great.
sorry,
Thanks.
everybody. Technical
Hey, Tate,
difficulties.
how are you? I'm Cindy Liebes. I'm the fun, chief program officer, excuse me, with Cybercrime Support Network. I'm an attorney who recently retired from the Federal Trade Commission. I worked there for 35 years prosecuting financial crimes. And I am so pleased today to have with me Tate Jarrow from Google. Tate, could you introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Tate Jarrow. I'm from Google here in New York. And right now, what I'm working on is I'm working in Google's internal incubator, basically where we incubate internal startups. And I'm working on a consumer online safety product. My background here at Google for the last 3 years has been working in the cybersecurity online safety space. And then before that, I was in the United States Secret Service as a special agent where I investigated cybercrime, including financial crimes. And I'm really happy to be here. This is my second LinkedIn Live with the Cybercrime Support Network, and it's a great organization. So happy to have a chat today.
Well, thanks so much, Tate. Tate has been a great friend to CSN, and we're happy to have you here. Online shopping is just booming. Most people, especially with the pandemic, are doing just quite a bit of their shopping online. But scam artists know that, and they are booming in their scams, especially since the pandemic hit. Do you know from January to September of this year alone, the FTC received over 300,000 complaints about online shopping scams. And they are estimating that they're going to receive by the end of 2021 over 400,000 complaints. That's just huge. It's the number 2 fraud category behind imposter scams. And just a couple of days ago, the Better Business Bureau came out with a new report saying they've seen a 40% increase in the number of online shopping complaints from 2019. I mean, it's just skyrocketing. So we know that even with all these reports that consumers are filing, that's just a very small number of those who are actually victimized. But when we're talking about online shopping scams, Tate, what are we talking about, and how do they happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think those numbers are shocking, and really, when I think about victim reporting, we know that victims rarely report. There's a study in the UK that I read where basically they estimated probably only 16% of victims of cybercrime actually report. And so what that means is these numbers are probably 8 times too low, or another way to say that is they're 8 times higher than we're talking about. And I think that the pandemic, people doing more online shopping, and then people being in a higher financial crunch, scammers have really taken advantage of that, because one of the hallmarks of online shopping scams are scammers trying to attract victims by these amazing deals on luxury items. And so people who are really looking for deals have a lower index of suspicion, is what they want, and then they end up falling for these scams. And so what they are is when a scammer is pretending to be legitimate online and selling goods, and people believe them either because it's a fake website, or maybe it's a fake ad on that directs you to a fake website, or even on social media platforms that are selling goods, and victims get fooled by what the scammer is trying to sell. And yeah, it can be where they never ship you anything, or it could be selling counterfeit goods or even defective, lower quality goods as well. So there's a wide range there.
We used to see that a lot at the FTC, where these ads look great. They take pictures of legitimate products or the ads, or they'll actually spoof or take over a legitimate website. And so the ads look great. People, hey, that's a great bargain. And oftentimes they would get way inferior product, or if they got anything at all. That actually recently happened to my son. He was trying to buy something online, and what he received was nothing like what he thought he was purchasing. So it is a tough sign. Are there some warning signs that people can look at, or are there ways you can detect a fake site or something that's not legitimate?
Yeah, I mean, well, yes, I think that there are ways in general that kind of the red flags to look for are these too good to be true uh, deals, right? Like, oh, this amazing luxury item that is a lot cheaper, or something that's really popular and maybe scarce and hard to find, but then they have it on this different website. So if it's too good to be true, I mean, this is true for basically every scam. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. And then the other big tip off that I like to call out is the payment. When one of these scammers, they often will try to have non-standard payments, like maybe cryptocurrency or gift cards, uh, or I mean, I don't know why I'm blanking on other options, but
Well,
not standard payments, because if you standard payments are easier for the customer to get to revoke or block, and so the scammer wants ones that can't happen to them.
right. I know by paying by credit card is always the safest method. Whenever I speak to a group, I always tell them pay by credit card. You have legal rights when you pay by credit card under the Fair Credit Billing Act. But even more than that, they will help you solve your problem or charge it back. Whereas when you pay by cryptocurrency or when you pay by gift card, it's like you handed them cash. You can't get your money back. And it's always so frustrating. And I always try to tell people, if someone asked you to pay by a gift card is a gift. It is not a payment method.
Yeah, and on top of that, uh, when like there's the sense of urgency that sometimes can be put in, like, hey, if this is going to go fast, like you have to buy it now. Like scammers really want you to move quickly, so you have less time to think about it as being weird, and so these are red flags. And then the other thing I would say to look at is like the web page itself. And again, the easiest way to protect yourself from online shopping scams is to shop from known websites, known businesses that you can research on, places like the Better Business Bureau, or you can find them as a business by doing some basic research. But you can also look at things like, is there a privacy policy link? And then in that privacy policy, does it look like a real privacy policy? Is there a legal section, a contact us section? Things that you would expect to see in a normal online retailer. If that's missing, that's likely a red flag. That's something weird is going on.
Yeah, oftentimes you'll see that some of the websites don't have an address or a place you can contact them or a phone number, or you'll see mistyped information. Those are great red flags that you're raising. And I always say to folks, Google it if you don't know about the company. Check them out, because that's one of the best ways to find out, is this company legitimate? Sometimes if you put in the name and write scam, it'll pop right up. So those are some ways. And I know that, oftentimes if you look at what they're offering, and if it's that much lower, like you said, it's probably too good to be true. But the chances of it being available and that much cheaper, you know what? It's probably a scam.
Right.
You talked about different methods of payment and ways to avoid shopping scams. If a company is out there and they're really telling you right now, pay right now, are there ways to what can someone do to spot that it might be a problem? Are there any rules that you might suggest that they look at?
Yeah, I mean, there's a great website that CSN and Google have published called scamspotter.org, which I think the link is hopefully showing up. And I love these 3 rules because they're, 1, easy to remember, and 2, easy to communicate to a loved one, maybe a parent, a grandparent, or children, which are slow down, spot check, and then stop what you're doing, stop from paying. And the idea is, scammers try to make you move fast so you don't have time to think about it. So if you slow things down, you can have the opportunity to have a little higher index of suspicion. And then spot check is about doing the research, checking on Google, thinking critically, does this make sense? Does this website look normal? If I put in this website plus scam in Google, are there 10,000 people complaining about it? And then stop is, stop from paying. Don't send that wire transfer. Don't send that gift card. And that's how those are the 3 golden rules for protecting yourself from online scamming.
And those are really important rules because, when you slow down, like you said, it makes you really think. It makes you say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Spot checking is always one of the most important things. Check out a company. You would never send money to somebody randomly just because they send you an email. But we do that when we're shopping sometimes because it looks good. And then stop, don't send, like you said, no reputable company will ever demand that you pay them on the spot right now. And they will they will never ask you to pay by gift card. And right now, I would say if anybody asks you to pay anything by cryptocurrency, just remember that's not traceable and you can't get it back. So those are some of the things. Those are great ideas. And scamspotter.org is a great place. It's a great website and a great place for folks to get good tips, logical and succinct tips. Are there certain ways, if someone is scammed, what can they do?
Yeah, so I think, there's a lot of options. One thing, again, I think is around payment method. Your options deteriorate when you're using a non-standard payment method, like a gift card. If you get a gift card and you tell the person that the scammer, the number and the PIN number, they own it. Like that money is gone, and you're not going to get that money back. So using payment methods like credit cards, which are better than debit cards, but all of those options, these traditional payment methods, are better than sending a gift card or a Western Union or something like that. And so, the preventative piece is the most important thing, to give yourself options. But what I do recommend is, if you are scammed, you did send some kind of payment, you should contact the financial institution as quickly as possible, because there is a chance, depending on the payment method, that maybe there's something you can do. So, for example, if you send a wire transfer and it turns out that you were scammed, there is a limited window where if you contact your bank and explain the situation, they might be able to bring the wire transfer back. So contacting the financial institution if money went out the door as quickly as possible is really important. It's also really important to report the incident. In the United States, you can report to IC3, or the FTC has a fraud website. And the reason reporting is necessary is because these scammers are hitting people in volume. They're doing it at scale. And the resources in the United States, from a law enforcement perspective, to investigate, and a regulatory perspective to go after these actors, are relatively limited. And so what the authorities need is information on which actors are the most prolific, and the scale of what they're doing, so they can build these cases and get resources in order to stop these people. So reporting is really important.
It's critical. I will tell you, as from working at the FTC, that's how we brought our law enforcement actions in federal court. We would see that there were dozens or hundreds or even thousands of cases or complaints against one particular organization or using one particular address or phone number. And then we would build a case using the consumer complaints. So when consumers don't complain, we don't have that. We didn't have the resources or the information to bring the cases. You know, you talked earlier on is the number of complaints is usually so small. And that's why I always encourage people to complain to the IC3, to the FTC, because the more complaints you get, the more likely it is that a law enforcement agency or regulatory agency, whether it's state or federal, will look at the problem. And so, you know, hopefully the viewers out there will continue to complain some more. And it's not just to one place you should complain. You should complain, I assume you were saying, to the financial institution and to a law enforcement agency.
Yeah, and also I think, you know, where the scam originated, let's say you were on a social media site and you clicked on a page that then put you down this rabbit hole getting scammed, you should report that page to that company. So if it was like Facebook, you should report it to Facebook, because companies like Facebook and Google and Twitter and, you know, all these companies, they have abuse teams that are trying to not have this stuff be on their platforms, but they need reports of things that are not right in order to take action. So, and I would also argue that with these companies, you know, one report is going to lead to an investigation, which will probably lead to higher impact, because there's probably other things that are doing similar on those platforms. So I agree. I think reporting to the authorities, and then reporting to your financial institution if money went out the door, and reporting to the source of where the scam originated, I think is really important. And also, if you think about it, from my perspective, we're all in this together. So it's not just if you're a victim or you see something that's not right, maybe you're not even victimized. We need to report it. So as a community, we all have to, if we're all doing this, it makes it harder for the bad actors to operate, which then reduces it over time. And so I can't talk enough about reporting.
Me too. And educating others, you know, oftentimes reporting it, sometimes even to your local TV station or Call for Action or the Better Business Bureau. When you report the kind of scams that are out there, then they can let others know, wait a minute, this is a new scam, or this is a new trend that's going on in online scams. Because with the numbers out there, it's incredible how many scams are out there, and people have such a difficult time trying to get their money back. And so the more you can report, the more law enforcement can go after them. And also, the more likely you are, the earlier you report, the easier it is maybe to get your money back.
Yeah. And I think just another point on education, you know, the prevention side is it's so much better to never have to report, because you're reporting as a concerned citizen, not as a victim. That's so much better. And I think, again, that scamspotter.org website is really great for helping educate your loved ones about scams. There's some good videos on there. It's very interactive and simple. And so I really recommend that website to have these conversations, because really what we want to do for the people around us is raise their index of suspicion. So when they're going online shopping, they realize about, you know, a really good deal is probably too good of a deal. And if you've never thought about that or had that conversation with someone you care about, then they're more likely to fall for these schemes. So yeah, education from a prevention perspective is so important. And again, cannot iterate that enough.
It is. And it is. I always used to say education, but also talking to someone else. Like sometimes when you say it out loud to a friend or to a family member and you say, hey, I got this great deal for $5. I got a Louis Vuitton bag. And they're like, you know what? That's probably not likely to be an actual, you know, designer bag. It's more likely that you're involved in a scam, that either you may never receive the junk or you're going to receive something that's a complete knockoff. So that's always a smart thing to do. So just if so let's say you're dealing with a legitimate company or a company, are there rules or rights that a consumer may have if you're dealing with a company and let's say your order doesn't arrive at the right time? Are there any rights that they have?
Yeah, I think this is a good thing to bring up because we've been talking about like malicious scammers, and that's certainly a category that when you're online shopping, you could become a victim of. But there's also retailers that are doing their best. Maybe they have a supply shortage, or maybe they're having other issues, and you don't receive your goods that you paid for. What's your recourse? I think I don't know if I would call that necessarily a scam, but it's something that affects a consumer. And so the answer is yes. There's these rules. I think we're posting a link now, but the FTC governs this, as Cindy intimately knows. And one of them, this rule is around mail, internet, and telephone orders. And basically, you have rights about when you're supposed to receive the shipment after making payment. And I think it's 30 days once you place the order that they must ship it. And if they don't, if there's a delay, then the retailer has to give you the option to cancel or to get to cancel it or to accept the delay. And so if you're in a situation where you order something and it's been 30 days and the company is like, hey, it's going to be another 30 days. And you're like, well, I want my refund. And they say, no, we're not going to be able to refund you. Like they're violating this FTC rule. And so hopefully nobody comes into that situation, but it's important to know that with retailers that are not purposely trying to scam you, you have rights in your payment and when you're supposed to receive these goods. And I'll pause because Cindy probably has something to contribute. And then
I was going to say that also they have to give you, if you request it, you have to get a full refund if they don't ship within that time period. And they can't just say, oh, you'll get store credit or a gift card if they don't ship it. But really, you really need to know a company's refund policy. Like research that, because even when you're dealing with legitimate companies, some companies have no refunds, no refund, even in person. And so you need to look at what is the company's policy. Can I get my money back if I don't get what I want fast enough? And especially in today's world with shipping issues and all of that right now, what's going on, that's something you really need to think about, especially with the holidays coming up. So
yeah, and that could potentially be a red flag if there's a website that's like no refunds no matter what. Like that's our policy. Like maybe that's a red flag that something weird is going on.
And it can be, and it can also be that that's not a company you want to be dealing with. As a consumer, we need to be informed. And also the other thing that I would say is consumers really need to keep records. Keep a record of when you purchased it. Keep a record of where you sent the money, or if you sent it, what credit card you used, or what your method of payment is. Just make sure you keep those records, because that's the best way to ultimately get your money back. And it's actually very useful for law enforcement should you be the victim of a scam.
Yeah, I mean, not that we're talking about credit card fraud is a little bit out of scope for this discussion, but when you're paying online for legitimate websites, it's possible that there's a compromise on the company side and your credit card information ends up getting exposed and then used, in the future. And one of the things that bad actors do is they try to make, if they're using your credit card for a fraudulent purchase, they try to make it not raise an alarm. And so I think it's really important when we talk about records, if you're using credit cards and debit cards, that you're checking your statements to make sure that I recognize these purchases, because many fraudulent purchases are never noticed by consumers, and then you're paying that out of pocket. So I always recommend for people to take the 5 minutes to review that credit card statement and make sure that all the charges are things that you did, or someone who has access to your card did, because you don't want somebody getting free money that you're paying them unknowingly. So you got to check.
That's great advice. Actually, it made me think of one of the most recent scams that the FTC issued an alert on. It was the Amazon scam, is where people were sending you an email and telling you to click on a link because there was either a problem with your Amazon account, or they would say your most recent purchase has been rejected. Please click on the link so you can fix it. And when someone would click on a link, they weren't going directly to Amazon. They were going to a fraudulent website. And what I really encourage people to do is never click on a link from an unsolicited email. But even more than that is, you said check your credit card statement, check your Amazon account. If you purchase a lot of things from, let's say, one distributor like Amazon or Walmart or any other distributor, check those accounts, because when a fraudulent operator or a scam artist gets a hold of that information, they can just purchase product. And if you're not checking, you may not realize that's happening. So
Yep.
all great advice. It is really, and also, when you pay by credit card, you have so many more rights. And, the credit card companies are great to often help you and at least give you your money back. And that's, the chargeback rights give you that one best right is your money back. And that's always great.
Yeah. And, some people shop with debit cards, and debit cards, generally banks provide you the same protection. But what I tell people is, if you're able to use a credit card, use it, because a debit card, the money is coming out of your account. So if there's a fraudulent purchase, you now have to get that money back. Whereas with a credit card, you just don't pay that. Like you don't, it's not coming out of your bank
right.
account.
They have to get it from you, not you
Right.
not you fighting with them. And I agree wholeheartedly, although most financial institutions are pretty good, but when you're the victim of a scam, but proving that you're the victim of the scam and just didn't try to get something too cheap or something like that, sometimes they will make it difficult for you. Well, Tate, I think we're running out of time. This has been a great discussion, and I know we could go on and on about it. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience before we sign off?
I think I would just summarize and say, to shop safe, use known websites, do your research. If it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. And non-standard payment methods like gift cards are a huge no-no. And I would recommend for no one to ever use those payment methods for online shopping.
Those are great pieces of advice. And for more information, I encourage listeners to go to fightcybercrime.org. That's CSN's website for more great information, not only about the various scams and online scams that are out there, but also on how to recover should you become the victim and what to do. Thank you so much, Tate, for this. It's been a pleasure. And thank you all for watching. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.